Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Grogan. This video goes over the notes on buying or leasing a car. There's a lot to unpack in this slideshow, so I created a video that kind of goes over some things that you need to know about it. It will come in handy with the assignment that I posted about buying a new car, buying or leasing a new car. Right? This will. When it comes to buying or leasing, will be applicable to new cars. All right. When it comes to used cars, you generally don't lease a used car. You can buy a new car, buy a used car. But a lot of the concepts that go into buying a new car will also go into buying a used car. Just in general, that it's with used cars, there's less money involved, but that doesn't mean there are less problems, as you'll see. So to go through, I'm going to quickly go through this with you, and I'll go over some of the main points to this. I'll be going over not only the differences between buying and leasing a car, but also some of the fees that go into buying a car, whether it's new or used. Okay. There's some of the vocabulary terms that get introduced here. I'll be going over them in a few minutes. But buying a car is basically when you pay cash for the car and own the car immediately. Or in most cases, you pay a down payment and a monthly payment to later own the vehicle. Most of the time, probably more than 3/4 of the time, when someone buys a new car or even buys a used car, usually it's a monthly payment, all right, to later own the vehicle. When I say about 3/4, it's more with new cars. There are a lot of used cars that people pay cash up front for, and they own the car immediately. But when it comes to a new car, it's you usually put in a down payment and then a monthly payment over a period of anywhere between 2 to 7 years to later own the vehicle. Right. When you lease a car, all right, leasing is like renting. All right. You rent the car from a dealer for usually between 24 and 48 months. Most lease deals are 3 years, which is 36 months. All right. Price is determined by the difference between the purchase price and the predetermined value of the car at the end of the lease period. Essentially, in a nutshell, leasing makes it easier to get more car for less money. All right. Is because you only pay for the value of the car that you drive instead of actually buying and owning the entire worth of the vehicle, which does have some advantages, but as you'll see, we'll have a few disadvantages as well. All right. A couple of things I do want to get into before we go into the advantages and disadvantages of buying a car and the advantages and disadvantages of leasing a car. There are a few terms I do want to go over with you that you will see in the assignment that you're going to be doing on this. One is an MSRP, and what that is a manufacturer's suggested retail price. If you ever watch like game shows on TV where they give away a car, when they list the price of the car, they will often say something like manufacturer's suggested retail price. Or if you look at a car ad, you may even hear them mention MSRP. What they mean by that is the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Now, what that is that's a price that a product's manufacturer recommends it be sold for at point of sale. All right. Generally, it's when you buy from a dealership, depending on like the extra features that you add onto the car, or if the dealership is offering a sale, the actual price of the car that you buy at a dealership may actually be a little bit less than the manufacturer suggested retail price. But it varies from dealership and whether they're having a sale or not. Okay. When you buy a car, you want to make sure that you're ready to pay some taxes and fees on it. All right. As with any major purchase that you make, all right. And you should know this by now by being in this class for a few months, is that a lot of things have fine print that goes with it. All right. As you know, we recently did an assignment on rental agreements. Or you could also go back to when we did an assignment on credit card shopping. All right. There was a lot of fine print that you have to go through. Cars are definitely no exception. All right. And there are some fees and some taxes that will also go with it. One of which is a vehicle registration fee. It's the amount the estate charges to register a new vehicle. and assign a title and cover the cost of license plates. All right. The dealer will provide this service for you, which saves you a trip to the DMV. If it's a used car, it will be a different story, obviously. But more often than not, if you buy a used car, whether even if it's from a dealership, although some dealerships will take care of that for you for a used car, but if you buy a used car from another owner, you may have to go to the DMV. All right, but usually if you go if you buy a new car or even lease a car from a dealership, they will usually take care of the registration stuff for you, but they will charge a fee. Right? But that's a fee that it's an understandable hassle that gets avoided. All right, so you will usually have to pay a vehicle registration fee, but there is a benefit to that because they will take care of the registration process for you, and as I said, saves you a trip to the DMV. Sales tax on a new vehicle can take people by surprise. If a 9% sales tax on a $30,000 car is $2,700. Okay. And the sales tax rate varies from state to state. Rhode Island's sales tax is 7% on a new car. Massachusetts and Connecticut are slightly less. I know for a while that the sales tax on cars in Massachusetts were actually the percentage between Rhode Island and Massachusetts used to be a little more significant, which is why that there's a lot of dealerships right across the car dealerships that are right across the Massachusetts border. It doesn't really make much of a difference if you're buying a new car, what state you buy it in, whether it's Rhode Island, Massachusetts, or Connecticut, because as you see, the percentage is less than 1%. So if you did it in Massachusetts, you may save a few bucks, but you also have to consider the time driving to and from the place. So when you're buying the car, so it's in some cases, the sales tax is a significant difference, but between Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, it's not that big. All right. Documentation fee. Not all dealerships charge a documentation fee. All right. Some do. And this goes to whether you're buying or leasing the car. I know that for my car, I leased mine, and the documentation fee took me a little bit by surprise, but some dealerships will charge car buyers a documentation fee, or what they call a doc fee. Covers the cost of preparing and filing the sales contract and other paperwork. And, some of that can be like actually storing the documentation, because a lot of dealerships actually have a building within their dealership that actually has all the documents for all the cars that they sell in there. All right. Documentation fee could actually be a couple $100s. Now, it may not seem like a lot, considering if you're buying a $30,000 car, well, we may figure, well, what's $300, $400, or $500? Well, the fact that they're charging a fee to actually prepare and file the sales contract and other paperwork seems a little ridiculous, but car dealerships can get away with that. There are some states that will that actually have laws that prevent dealerships from going overboard with documentation fees, but if you're buying a new car, you may want to be ready to pay a couple $100s extra for a documentation fee. There's no way around it. All right. The destination fee. It's the amount that manufacturers charge dealers to ship a new car into the dealership lot. This one, you may think, well, why would you have to pay for this? You do have to consider that when a car is produced, when a car is manufactured, whether it's manufactured in this country or overseas, even if it's manufactured in this country, you have to take into consideration that a lot of the parts that go into a car are often manufactured in other parts of the world. Like they may have the car may be actually assembled in, let's say, Kentucky, but the parts for that car may have been assembled in other, in China or Japan or Europe or Mexico, wherever, right? But once that car is actually assembled, let's just say it's assembled in Kentucky, all right? And you do have to factor in that when the car is right off the lot right off the manufacturer lot in Kentucky, they do have to bring that car over to various parts, to that dealership where you're actually buying the car from. There's a lot of transportation costs that go into that. All right. Believe it or not, like to get, let's say, 5 or 6 cars from Kentucky, and I just use Kentucky as an example, to Rhode Island, it may, it will require a couple of fill-ups by by an 18-wheeler. And the price of diesel fuel is not cheap. And those 18-wheelers often have over 100-gallon gas tanks or 100-gallon diesel tanks, right? And also, so the cost of actually transporting those cars is where the destination fee comes from. So the advantages of buying a car, all right? Some of them may seem a little obvious to you if you think about it. You own the car. You get to keep it as long as you like. All right. You could alter the car in any way that you want. And as you make payments, you gain equity in the vehicle until it's eventually all yours. All right. It's much like when you buy a house. All right. Once you eventually pay it off, you gain equity in it until it's all yours. All right. And it becomes an asset. It's something that you have that's of value. Okay. And you have more flexibility to sell the car whenever you want. You can sell a car if you haven't finished making the payments on it. All right. Let's just say you take a 6-year loan on a brand new car, and after 4 years, you want to sell it. You can still sell it. It just there's a little more paperwork involved in that. All right. Because in order to actually sell the car, you need to have the title of the car. And you're not going to get the title until you finish making all the payments on the car. If you want to sell a car and you haven't made all the payments on it yet, you'll still be able to do it, but there's more paperwork involved, as I mentioned. All right. The disadvantages of buying, all right, as you'll see when you get into the assignment itself, is that the monthly payments are higher than the lease payments. All right. And that's where our old friend, the annual percentage rate, comes into play. I'll get into that in a minute. Okay. When the warranty expires on a car, you're responsible for the repair cost. Usually, some dealerships don't even offer much of a warranty. All right. But more often than not, you usually get a couple for the first couple of years that you own the car. You can, for a fee, you can get a warranty on it. And in which case the dealership will cover any repairs on it. And there will be some, like oil changes and whatnot. But keep in mind that during the first couple of years that the car's existence, you're not going to have that many repairs that will be needed on it. Okay. There will be some regular maintenance that you'll have to do, but during the first couple of years that you own a car, it's not, unless you drive it, like if you put like 20,000 miles a year on it, you're not going to have to worry too much about repairs. Once you get more miles on the car, once you get to like 70, 80, 100,000 miles, then other things on the car is going to start to break down, and there's a lot of maintenance that will be required at that point. All right. The term for the payments are usually longer. All right. If you want to buy a brand new car, you could take out like a 6-year loan. All right. But that means you're going to be making payments on it for 6 years. All right. And, it requires a higher down payment to avoid being upside down in the loan, meaning that you owe more than the car is worth. You never want to be in that situation. You run that risk when you buy a new car. You may face possible trade-in or selling hassles when you decide to get your next car. All right. And a car is a depreciating asset, meaning that the more you drive it, the less value that it has. They say once you buy a brand new car, the value of that car goes down by $500 as soon as you drive it off the lot. Okay. So if a car that you paid $30,000 for, once you drive it off the lot for the first time, value goes down to $29,500. All right. And it varies from car to car, but generally that's the industry standard. Okay. I mentioned a minute ago about the annual percentage rate. This is a term that you've heard of before back when we were working on credit cards. Okay. Same rules that went into determining APR with credit cards apply with buying a new or used car. Basically, if you have good credit history, meaning that you pay your bills on time and you don't have a lot of debt, once you buy a new car and you finance it, APR is probably going to be fairly low. If you have a poor credit score, if you have a history of not paying your bills on time and you have your thousands of dollars in debt, your APR is going to be high. All right. And in which case, in the long run, you're going to end up paying more for the car. Okay. All right. Now, when it comes to the advantages of leasing a car, all right, there are obviously some differences between buying and leasing. Leasing is when you're actually renting the car. Okay. And usually most lease agreements are for 3 years, though you can get some for 2 years or 4 years. And generally, the industry standard is 3 years, 36,000 miles, meaning you get 12,000 miles a year. All right. And although sometimes it could be for just 10,000 miles a year, it could be 15,000 miles a year, or even 20,000 a year. Okay. But essentially, some of the advantages of leasing is that the monthly lease payments are typically much lower than compared to buying the same car, because you have to keep in mind that your overall goal is to not actually own the car, but just rent it for 3 years. Okay. So, if you're getting a 6-year loan on a car, all right, you're going to, you're going to pay a lot for it in the long run, but where you're leasing a car for 3 years, the monthly payments are going to be less. All right. It's often you have a low down payment or no down payment. All right. It's usually a good idea. I mean, it's a good idea to maybe put in a little bit of a down payment. Okay, because it will knock down the lease payments, the monthly lease payment a little bit, but you don't want to commit $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in a down payment for a leased car, because if you get into an accident the first few months that you lease it, you don't get that money back. So that's something to keep in mind. So it's a good idea to have a little bit of a down payment on a lease, but not a lot. You could drive a better car for less money. That's true. Okay, because of the lower monthly payments. When your lease is up, you can lease another vehicle so that you're always driving a newer car that's often covered by the manufacturer's warranty. All right, you get to enjoy the most trouble-free 2 or 3 years of the vehicle's life, because not too many things are going to go wrong with the car for the first couple of years, unless it's an absolute lemon. But when your lease is up, you can bring the vehicle back to the dealership and either lease a new one or just walk away. All right. There's also, as I said, they lower repair costs. You don't usually run into any trade-in hassles at the end of the lease, because usually the dealership will take it back with no problems. All right. You don't own the car at the end of the lease, although if you really like it, there's an option to buy. All right. And, all right. So, and, you don't want to terminate a lease early for obvious reasons. All right. Much like you don't want to terminate a rental agreement before the end of the lease, because you're going to end up paying a lot in the long run anyway. So it's best not to do it early. All right. Now, there are a lot of advantages to leasing, but there are also a few disadvantages as well. You don't own the car. All right. There are mileage restrictions. You have a limited number of miles in your lease contract. Usually it's 12,000 a year, could be 15 a year, may only be 10,000 a year. Okay. You get to choose in that, by the way. But if you drive more than that, you may have an excess mileage penalty of 10 cents a mile. It could be 25 cents a mile, it could be 30 cents a mile. Depends on the type of car usually. Right. Now you may think, well, 10 cents, 15 cents, that's not a lot of money, but that's for every mile. And so if you go several thousand miles over that limit, you could, face you could be paying a few $100s in overage. Okay. In some cases, it could be like $1,500 or $2,000 extra just because you went way over on the miles. Okay. So if you plan on driving the car a lot and putting a lot of miles on the car, it's not a good idea to lease. All right. But however, if you just plan on going to and from work or doing a lot of city driving, leasing isn't a bad option. Okay. You don't get charged if you will get charged if you try to terminate the lease early. So don't do that. You need good credit to get a lease. That's an important aspect there too. All right. And Also, if you're in the lease the habit of constantly leasing a car, monthly payments will go on forever. All right. So you're always going to be paying a monthly payment on a car if you just lease every 2 or 3 years. So if you don't like to do that, leasing is not the option for you. Okay. You must maintain the vehicle in good condition, or you may even have to pay some wear and tear charges when you turn it in. Okay. Um, you can't customize your vehicle in any permanent way. All right. Now, as I said, if after, let's say you take a 3 year lease out, after the 3 years, when you return the car, you can buy the car, and in which case you can do whatever you want with it at that point. But during the terms of the lease, you can't. All right. All right. So, if you run into if money is an issue, and for obviously a lot of people it is, and it is a major issue, and you have good credit and you want to drive a newish car, leasing isn't a bad option. Okay, leasing is a good option to do if you have the money, if you have good credit. You don't want to pay a high amount in monthly car payments, and you don't drive it a lot, or you don't plan on driving it a lot. Like if you live in the city or if you have a short commute to work or school, leasing is a good option because you know you're not going to drive it that much. Okay. Right. And if like I said, if you'd like to have a new car every couple of years, leasing is a good option. You don't like to be bothered with repairs, leasing is a good option. And all right. Right. Now, if you are someone that wants to have the same car for years on end, financing is a good option. If you want to actually own a car, financing is a great option. And if you're not sure if you are going to want to get a new car a few years from now or a year from now, or you think you may have to give up the car unexpectedly within a couple of years, financing or buying it would be the best option. Okay. It really, the option of whether to buy a new car or to lease a new car, that's really up to you. Okay. But there are some advantages. You can tell that there are some advantages and disadvantages to them. These notes will help you with the assignment on shopping for a new car. If you have any questions on it, please let me know. Thank you very much.